Hello! So today I'm going to explain how to create a composite image in Photoshop. And while my explanation is in Photoshop, you can use these same set of instructions to do this in Gimp or any other program. You'll just have different menu choices, but you should still have all the same functionality. So to begin with, this picture is of a comb, an old comb from 1910 or 1920 or so, and it has resin tines in it, and one of them is broken that you can see in the middle, and the rest of it is silver. And I've always wanted to do something involving a little me jumping over the broken tine. That's just the way my mind works. And it put off the project for years and years, and then finally the Blackstone Valley Art Association had a spring art show, and I decided that this was going to be my chance to do it. So I sat down and worked through the process. So first I took a couple of pictures of the full comb laying on the marble patio table that we have on our back deck. And I will note that I did these with my cell phone. I didn't even do these with my regular camera. I wanted to see how well the cell phone would create the images. So this is simply my Samsung 21 cell phone taking pictures of the comb in natural sunlight on the back porch on my marble table. And I went through and chose the image that I thought came out the best for my purposes. And then once I have gotten that image all set, I start cropping it down to the size that I know that I'm going to be printing it at, because frames come in certain sizes and mats come in certain sizes. Unless I want to pull out the mat cutter and start dealing with that kind of nightmare, I wanted to do a fairly standard size of 13 inches by 9 inches, or 13 inches by 19 inches. So I'm in the process now of deciding how I want to crop this and what look is going to look best. I will also note that I'm doing this walkthrough for people after the show is live, so I am trying to recreate the steps that I did for making my final actual artwork. So this is not going to match exactly the one that I have hanging on the wall in the gallery, but it's close enough to show you how the process works. Alright, so a lot of the initial part of composing an image is, like I said, determining how you want it to lay out in the space that you have available with the size of the print that you're going to print to do the matting and framing to hang on the wall. And once you've decided what portion of the image you want to show, it's time to move on to the adjustment of that image in terms of how it presents, the lightness, darkness, contrast, all that other kind of stuff. So normally at this stage I make a copy of the layer so that I'm leaving that initial layer completely untouched. So then I'll start playing with the saturation and the hues and the lightness and the darkness, and unfortunately the way this system records you can't see the actual changes I'm making, but I think you get the sense of what I'm doing. And it's going to be individual for whatever image you're working on and whatever kind of impression you're trying to get. You're trying to make it so that the parts that catch your eye are the parts that you want the viewer to be looking at. So at this point I'm pretty pleased with the way the background looks, as sort of an abstract thing, and my only real concern is how bright those little dots are, the sunlight sparkles on the tines of the comb. They are catching the eye too much. And when I am trying to select them and then select everything that's similar to them, it's getting too much extra stuff in the background marble. You can see all the stuff that's being selected. So just trying to select the white that's shining is not working. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select just the area with the sparkling shine in it, and I'm going to copy that onto its very own layer. And now that that's on its very own layer, I'm going to select a little spot of white and then tell the system to select everything similar to that spot of white. And since I've got just this little stripe, it's only going to select across the bright spots on the tines. And now I can ease down the brightness of those so that they don't catch the eye quite so much. So if you watch those white spots, you should see that they will dim a little as I play with the brightness setting of this layer I'm working on. And that way they are not the thing that draws the eye, because I want my jumping body to be what draws the eye. So at this point I've got the comb layer pretty much set the way that I want it. I like the background, I like the comb, I like the silver on the bottom. It gives a hint that it's a comb, but it's not eye-glaringly obvious. So now I'm going to look at the pictures of me jumping. Bob actually took a ton of pictures of me jumping back and forth and back and forth. So these are just two examples to show you what I was working with. And this one here happens to be the one out of all the various pictures that I thought was going to be the best for my purposes. It had one foot down, had my arms out, the other foot up, and so on. So I am cropping down reasonably close around my body. And I'm going to copy that and paste it into the comb picture. So now I've got me in the shape that I want, but clearly I don't want that other stuff in the background. So what I'm going to do here is not erase it. You should never erase when you're trying to work with a picture like this. You should always mask it, because when you mask the extra images, you can always get it back again. So I created a layer mask, and now I am just painting on that layer mask in black. So I am, we'll say, temporarily hiding it from view. And if I ever want to get any of those pieces back for whatever reason, even weeks later, I can always get a piece back. So if I trim a little too close to a hand and then weeks later I say, oh wait, I want to trim a little less close for whatever reason, I can always do that because the entire image is there. It is just being masked. Now since this takes a while, I'm going to time lapse it now and show you in a quicker version. But I will start the mask with a soft brush, with a large soft brush around the edges. And then once I do a pass with a large soft brush, I will zoom in the image a little, and then I will choose a smaller sized soft brush, and then I will zoom in a little, and then choose a smaller sized soft brush so that I can get into the details. Now I know that Photoshop has some abilities in here to do this sort of thing automated for you, but I find that their automated version is not always quite right, and I would just rather do it myself because it's fairly straightforward. You know, it doesn't take that long in the grand scheme of things. You can also see how the camera phone wasn't great with capturing my moving fingers, which I find sort of funny. It almost has a dolly kind of effect with hands. But that be that as it may, you know, I thought the cell phone did a really good job in general with all of this. So you do this cleanup, and again, I am not erasing. I am just masking, so if I, like I said, crop a little too heavily on the shoes and then decide, you know, a week later, oh, I want to crop less heavily on the shoes, I can just go back and unmask that area. So you just mask around the areas that you want. If I was doing this for real, I'm just doing this for the video demo, but if I was doing it for real, I would probably spend quite a lot more time with the masking. And when I did the version for the Uxbridge Gallery, I did spend a lot more time with masking. But I'm trying to give you a general sense of how this works. You go in with a little brush and really zoomed in to do pieces around the face where it matters more. But it's also worth mentioning that this is going to end up being tiny, all things considered, in this image. So it's not like it's going to make that much of a difference when we have a final image. So now that I've got this reasonably masked, I'm going to shrink my little masked person down, me, to a size where it looks like it would fit in with this comb image. So I'll just shrink it down so it looks more like I am jumping from one tine to another. And as you can see, I'm pretty tiny there. So if I, spent hours on the masking process, it's really not going to be visible anyway. So I did, a reasonable job. So at this point, we have the basics of the image that I had in the gallery. We have the comb on the marble table and a little me jumping from one tine to another. So you see how I could have used this technique to have a little me doing pretty much anything at all with any sort of object. I could be swimming around in a champagne glass, or I could be jumping up and down on a little push pin. There's all sorts of things you can do because you're taking a picture of you in whatever pose you want, and then you're just superimposing it on top of the picture of whatever else you wanted. So ignore the horizontal stripe in there, but at this point, now that you have all the component pieces together, you could play with the lightness of the background, or the brightness of the person, or the brightness of the comb. There's all sorts of adjustments you could make so that everything that you have here in pieces becomes a coherent whole image that presents the type of feeling that you're after. Really, the key is the thought process in the first place. Like I said, I've been thinking about this for 3 years and how I wanted to put it together and all of that. And then the actual construction wasn't too bad after that. And let's go back and take a look at the actual finished picture that I created. You'll see it's a little more zoomed in. There's a little more focus on me as a person, and that's the piece that I have in the gallery. So ask with any questions. I am happy to help.